High in the Arabika Massif of the South Caucasus, just 15 kilometers from the Black Sea, lies a geological scar that has fascinated scientists for decades. To the untrained eye, it appears to be nothing more than a crack in the stone. But this is the gateway to the underworld. This is Krubera Cave. For years, this location held the title of the deepest known cave on Earth. Today, a team of 11 elite speleologists is preparing to leave the surface world behind. Their mission is not just to map the rock, but to survive in it. They are committing to spend 8 days in total darkness, traversing a vertical distance of over 2 kilometers into the crust of the planet. As they cross the threshold, the rules of biology and physics seem to shift. The cave offers an immediate, grim warning to anyone who enters. Just below the entrance, the team encounters the skeletal remains of a sheep that wandered too close to the edge and fell hundreds of meters into the void. The explorers buried it under the soil to stifle the smell of decay, a stark reminder that in this place, gravity is a relentless predator. The descent is technical and unforgiving. In the confusion of the early stages, fatigue can lead to near-fatal errors. One explorer, disoriented by the darkness, forgets to engage his primary stop descender. He finds himself hanging by a single, secondary clip known as a jumar, a device not designed to hold a falling human body. In the abyss, you are singular. There is no audience to help you. If you make a mistake on the rope, you are truly alone with the consequences. Krubera is not a uniform tunnel. It is a torture chamber of changing dimensions. The team must navigate squeezes, narrow fissures in the limestone where the walls press against the chest and back. Here, the air is filled with fine dust particles that coat the throat and lungs, making every breath a labor. The physical strain is repetitive. Explorers must use the same muscle groups for hours on end to push themselves through the rock, leading to severe cramping. To fit through the tightest meanders, they must exhale all the air from their lungs and drag their bodies sideways, inch by inch. But the greatest enemy is the cold. The temperature inside the cave is a constant, unyielding 3 degrees Celsius. It is, effectively, a giant, wet refrigerator. The water here is inescapable. It drips from the ceiling and runs down the ropes, soaking the explorers to the bone. To combat hypothermia, the human body turns into a furnace. A speleologist in these conditions burns up to 8,000 calories a day, 4 times the requirement of an average person. It is impossible to carry enough food to replenish this energy. With every hour that passes, their bodies begin to consume their own reserves. By the end of this expedition, each member will lose an average of 10 kilograms. As they descend deeper, passing the 350-meter mark, another phenomenon takes hold: temporal distortion. Without the rising and setting of the sun, the human biological clock malfunctions. The 24-hour day ceases to exist. The team naturally drifts into a 40-hour cycle, staying awake for over 20 hours at a time and sleeping for 16. Time stretches and compresses. Monday and Tuesday blend into a single, endless timeline of darkness. They face the Big Well, a vertical drop of 105 meters. In the pitch black, their headlamps cannot even illuminate the bottom of the shaft. They are descending into a void so total that it feels like floating in outer space. The ropes, now heavy with water, become unpredictable. The friction devices used to control speed struggle to grip the wet fibers, causing dangerous shock loads. Every meter descended is a negotiation with gravity. As the depth increases, the geology becomes more hostile. The team encounters siphons, tunnels completely flooded with freezing underground water. These are not obstacles you can climb over. To proceed, you must dive. Diving a siphon is one of the most dangerous undertakings in exploration. There is no surface to swim to. The water is murky, and the risk of getting tangled in the guide rope is ever present. A single panic attack, or getting clothing caught on a sharp rock, can be fatal. At the camp located 1,640 meters deep, the cave reveals its most terrifying secret. High up on the ceiling, far above the reach of any human, sleeping mats from a previous expedition are stuck to the rock. This is evidence of a flash flood. A sudden rainstorm on the surface can send millions of liters of water crashing down these shafts, filling this entire chamber to the roof in minutes. If the team had been here during such an event, they would have stood no chance. They are sleeping in the drain pipe of a mountain, and the weather is the hand on the tap. As the expedition pushes past the 1,900-meter mark, the cave seems to actively resist their presence. They arrive at the final outpost, Camp minus 1,960. This is the deepest campsite on the planet. It is less of a camp and more of a crevice. The space is so restricted that the explorers cannot stand. They are forced to exist in a perpetual crouch, shoulder to shoulder, sharing body heat in the damp dark. Here, the psychological weight of the earth above them is tangible. They are now deeper underground than the Grand Canyon is deep. Every breath they take is recycled air, pushed down through kilometers of rock. Yet, this miserable crevice is the staging ground for the final push, the dive into the two captains' siphon. This siphon marks the accessible bottom of the cave. To go further, one must leave the rock and enter the water. This is the two captains' siphon, the deepest point of the cavern system. It is a place of absolute stillness, a black mirror reflecting the beams of the headlamps. The primary scientific objective is to determine the true depth of Krubera. In the open air, this would be a simple task for GPS satellites. But under 2 kilometers of solid limestone, satellites are silent. To measure the abyss, the team must rely on precision engineering and analog physics. Gennady Samikin, the expedition leader, deploys a specialized laser rangefinder. The environment is hostile to electronics. Standard batteries fail in the cold humidity, and the magnetic signature of the surrounding rock can distort compass readings. To ensure accuracy, he utilizes a custom compass board and plastic-encased power sources to mitigate magnetic interference. He wades into the freezing sump, risking hypothermia to secure a line of sight to the furthest measurable point. The data collected here is critical. The results are processed, with a margin of error of only 0.1%, approximately 10 meters. The team confirms the historic measurement. The depth of Krubera Cave is officially recorded at 2,224 meters. They have successfully mapped the basement of the world. But geology is only half the story. The team deploys bait traps into the siphon, suspended on lines deep into the submerged tunnels. They are hunting for biology in a place where photosynthesis is impossible. What they pull up from the deep challenges our understanding of life's resilience. Inside the traps, they find Gamera's Kroiri. It is a creature unique to this abyss, a living testament to evolution in isolation. Observe its physiology. It is completely transparent. In a world of eternal darkness, nature stops wasting energy on pigment. There is no need for camouflage, no need for UV protection. The creature has also lost its eyes entirely. Vision is a redundant sense here. Instead, it navigates using hypersensitive antennae, feeling the vibrations of the water to hunt and survive. The expedition cameras also capture something unexpected, a completely transparent, unidentified swimmer moving through the siphon. These are potentially new species, organisms that have diverged from their surface cousins millions of years ago, adapting to crushingly high pressures and near-freezing temperatures. They are, in every sense, aliens on their own planet. With the measurements taken and the samples collected, the mission objective is complete. But in caving, reaching the bottom is only the halfway point. Now, they must pay the price of entry. They face a vertical marathon, climbing 2 kilometers straight up against gravity. The ascent is often the most dangerous phase. The adrenaline of discovery has faded, replaced by profound exhaustion. The explorers' bodies are depleted. Having burned thousands of calories a day in the cold, they are now physically lighter, having lost muscle mass and fat reserves. But the ropes feel heavier. This is where focus drifts. Summit fever works in reverse here. The desperate urge to reach the surface can lead to rushing, and rushing leads to mistakes. Every transition between ropes requires mental clarity that is hard to summon after days of sensory deprivation. As they climb higher, the environment begins to shift. The first sign of the surface is not light, but life. Small insects appear on the walls. For the explorers, these tiny creatures are harbingers of the end. They signal that the air is changing, that the world of the living is close. The final few meters are a sensory shock. After 8 days of breathing damp, recycled cave air, the smell of the surface hits them first. It is the scent of wet soil, of grass, of rain. It is the smell of a living planet. Stepping out of Krubera is like returning from another planet. The daylight is overwhelming. The colors are too vivid. The breeze feels alien against their skin. They entered as explorers, and they return as survivors. They bring back data that rewrites our maps, and biological samples that expand the tree of life. Krubera Cave remains a testament to the mysteries that still exist on Earth. It reminds us that while we look to the stars for the unknown, there are still entire universes waiting to be discovered in the dark beneath our feet.